Hello, and welcome to Write That Resume, your winning marketing document. I'm Lisa Littlefield, Dean of the Hood College Career Center, and I'll be presenting your tutorial today. During our presentation, we'll cover the basics of resume writing, references, and writing a cover letter, as well as look at two important resources for you as you begin your job or internship search. Those are Handshake and Career Shift. So let's think about what a resume is. It, in fact, is your first meeting with a potential employer. This is how they're going to get to know you, and that's the challenge of a good resume, is how can an employer get to know a person from a sheet of paper? It's difficult, but it's not insurmountable, and hopefully the tips in this tutorial will help you get this done. This document can be circulated among many individuals within a company and outside a company too. So you want to be careful to make sure it's perfect in all of its grammar and all of the spelling, that there are no typos, and that it's formatted well. And you want to have a copy of it in front of you if you're doing an interview virtually or in person, as any information you have on this document may be referenced during an interview and is also subject to verification. So accuracy is tantamount. So a resume must be a concise summary. You could tell an employer many things about yourself, but of course there's some things that are going to be more important than others. These can usually be discerned through a careful inspection of the job description. So the first step in writing a great resume is to have several job descriptions in front of you to help you consider how to pare down all the information you could possibly share. It is a marketing vehicle, so you are selling your qualifications. And the order in which you place things on resumes and how you label those items could be very important in how significant an employer thinks those items are. You definitely, in advance of writing, want to think about your strengths and the things that make you unique. And remember, nobody ever got a job from a resume, but they do get interviews from resumes, and that is your goal. So while it might be tempting to try to put as much information about yourself as you possibly can onto this single sheet of paper, it's more important to understand that this document should be intriguing to the employer and make them want to interview you to learn more about you. Some things you definitely want to do on your resume is you want to look at those specific job descriptions to help you understand keywords. Keywords are extremely important because these days many companies use software programs that scan electronically submitted documents looking for keywords, and this is how you get into the candidate pool. The more keywords that you've used from the job description in your resume, the better the likelihood that a human being will actually look at your resume and potentially advance you to the interview stage. You want to describe your experiences fully, and you want to avoid vague terms. So be as specific as you possibly can in your bullet points. Use numbers to quantify how often you did things, to how many people you had in groups or service capacities that you were in, so that these things are not left to chance. Use a variety of language, and at the end of our session today, I will remind you that we have a great resume tutorial on our website for the Career Center and share with you a link to that document so that you can look at the action verb section of that tutorial as well. Be sure that resume is free of errors, and pretty much the only way to do that is for you to read it again and again, but also to get other people to be good proofreaders for you. Some don'ts that you want to avoid, some things that aren't good for resumes, are the use of templates. It may seem like a good idea and a quick way to put a resume together, but recruiters can very quickly see that you've not created an original document, and that your resume may look very similar to the hundreds of thousands of other people who have used the exact same template. Additionally, heavy formatting in templates or in resumes that you've created yourself with tables or graphics or that kind of thing can interfere with the computer software that assesses the keywords within a document. So it could work against you in terms of the computer advancing you into the hands of that human being. Do not include personal information on your resume. This is a professional document, so no need to put things like hobbies or your marital status, height, weight, those kinds of things on this document, unless you feel they're absolutely relevant to the position. But in most cases, that information is federally protected information, and an employer should not be asking you questions about those kinds of things. Don't go unnecessarily beyond one page. If you had very important information that caused some details to run on to a second page, only the least important information that you have to share should go on that second page. In other words, if somebody didn't see it, you would still have presented all of the most important information to the position and to that employer on that first page of your document. So, once again, pay attention to the organization. Put the most important things first. So now that you're in college or you're graduating from college or seeking a position that has a requirement for certain educational thresholds, you want to probably put a skills summary at the top, your educational information next, and then your work history, internship, or course experience following that. And that's the traditional order of information to be found in most resumes. We already said outside eyes, external proofreaders are very important. Try to maintain good-sized margins in your document if at all possible. As you expand your margins out to the sides of documents particularly, you begin to have a very crowded looking and difficult to read document. So readability is an important factor in organization, and we'll look at some examples in just a minute. Try not to get below 10-point font on your document. 12-point font is the recommended font size for general text document. Your name can be in a larger font, but if you get much below 10-point, the document once again starts to look very crowded and difficult to read. Use black ink. Some people might recommend different colors. However, readability and important information are the keys to having a great document, and no photographs unless you're applying for an acting or a modeling job. Good. So this is a document that's going to talk about both specifics and general skills that you possess. Some of these are soft skills. These are general human communication and interaction skills that we think about. And hard skills and technical skills are those things for which you have received specific kinds of training. So communication skills, verbal skills, that's a soft skill. Written skills, that's a hard skill. Strong work ethic, honesty, and integrity, those are soft skills. Those can't necessarily be taught in classes. There are intrinsic qualities within human beings. Teamwork, working well with others, can be a hard skill, particularly if you've had some degree of human resource or management training. Motivation and initiative, soft skill. Analytical problem solving, could be hard skill, could be soft skill. Computer skills, definitely hard skill. And you get the idea here as we run down this list of things that generally employers say they want in a contemporary employee and somebody who's ready to enter the workforce and be a great contributor to the organization. So standard section titles on the resume include contact information. At the very top, you want to be sure you have a great email address, something that's easy to read and is professional. You want to have your cell phone number, most likely, the phone that you're most likely to answer. You can include your street address, but that is not a necessity these days. If you're going to leave the street address off of your resume, you can just put the city and state in which you live. Your education, specific coursework, not every single course that you've taken, but those courses that are more relevant to the kind of work you would be doing. Definitely in a work history or work summary. Activities and volunteer work, honors and awards, are very important to show achievement, leadership, motivation. The other categories that you see here listed in white are alternative categories that you can include. An objective statement is important if you are trying to explain to the employer why you are qualified for a position and the kind of work that you are seeking. So it is a bit of a marketing statement. Definitely study abroad shows that you're able to navigate the complexities of other cultures. Skills summary and a profile, we said, is generally something you're going to find on a contemporary resume. Certifications, professional development, also other important categories, but optional if you don't have those things. They're not a necessity. So let's begin looking at the different components of the resume. As we said, the very first thing is your contact information. Many students ask, do I put my school address as well as my home address? And the answer is, it depends on where you're applying for employment. If you're applying for something that's closer to school, you only need to include your school address. If you're applying for something that's closer to where your home address is, you may want to include that address versus your school address so that people understand that you have the capability of living and working in their community. Your name should be the most prominent thing on your resume. It should be in all capital letters, and typically it's a slightly larger font. 14, 16, even 18-point font is okay for your name. Let's face it, if they didn't see anything else on your resume, we definitely want them to see your name. Now, about that phone number, be sure that you do have your voice mailbox set up on your telephone and that you're prepared to check those voicemail messages daily to be sure that an employer hasn't tried to reach you. And also, I would be careful about where you are when you answer your telephone if you're in an active job search. So if you're at the shopping mall and your phone rings and you don't recognize that phone number, you might want to let it roll to voicemail. Make sure your voicemail message is professional. Hi, you've reached Lisa Littlefield. I'm unable to take your phone call right now. Please leave your name, the time of your call, and your phone number, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Short, sweet, professional. That's all you're really looking for on that voicemail message. You also want to have an email that you're checking, and some people do create a separate email address that's only for job search purposes, internship or job search purposes. You can do that. If you do create a separate address, you want to be sure you kind of incorporate your name in that address if at all possible. And then if you decide to use your school address, that's okay too. It's a little harder for people to remember because it's your initials and a numeric, but it still is a valid address and it shows that you're currently in college. So that would be fine as well. The next section I've got highlighted here is your skills summary. This is probably the most easily changeable section on your resume in that you're able to use the keywords that you see in the job description and manipulate these bullet points in such a way to be certain that you're capturing and including those keywords, and that might help you advance past the computer system and into the hands of a human being. So be specific, use the job description, be sure that you're covering both those hard and soft skills. If you feel like you have an abundance of technical skills, let's say you're a computer science major, and you want to include a separate section that's technical skills and then a general skills summary, you can tweeze those things apart and include those in two sections as well. So skills summary, easy to manipulate. The next information you're going to have is your education. It's always the name of the college, the state, followed by the year of graduation. Bachelor of Arts degree or Bachelor's of Science. If you're a master's level student, Masters of Arts, Masters of Science would be appropriate here. Then the concentration areas, the major, and any additional concentrations or minors that you might have. Now, the GPA on this particular resume is left off. The rule of thumb is that if your GPA is a 3.0 or higher, then you're going to include that on your resume. If it's below a 3.0, the rule is to leave it off of your resume. You can include your major GPA, which is only for those courses that fall within the boundaries of your major. But if you should do that, it should still be higher than a 3.0, and you must call it your major GPA. Remember earlier we said that all information can be verified that's on your resume, and GPA is definitely one of those items that is verifiable. So you want to be sure that it's accurately represented. Following this section is your coursework. Once again, only the most relevant things to the position for which you would be applying. It can be in your major or outside of your major if you took some general education courses that you think are useful as well in describing your skill set. If you went to another college other than Hood, you must list that also. Be sure that you use the same formatting. Consistency in formatting is very important in resumes. And also, you want to be certain that you put any coursework that you may have achieved at another institution too. So, definitely list that, and everything on your resume should be in reverse chronology, meaning that you're always starting with the thing that you're doing most currently and you're working backwards in time. So whether it's in your employment section or in the education section, be sure that everything is present, working toward the past. So in this case, the person graduated from Hood, previously went to Frederick Community College, and that's in that reverse order. All right, now we're going to get into the experience section. As you can see, there's a lot to think about in this section. You have the opportunity in many cases to group information by the function or focus of the work that you did. For this particular resume, this person has an abundance of teaching experience, and they're grouping those experiences together, and they're manipulating the heading in this section to say teaching experience as a way of drawing the eye of the reader to that section and affirming for the reader that they have the kind of experience that they're seeking, that the employer is seeking. So this person is applying for a teaching position and wants to highlight that they have teaching experience in that heading. Other headings might be computer science experience. It could be mathematics experience. It could be biology experience. Any variety of combination be used in this heading. It's really up to you and your creativity to develop a heading that will be most attractive and enticing to the reader of the document. Following this is the name of the company, the city and state, the month and year in which you were employed in that company. So starting date and end date. Of course, if you're still in the job, you're going to make that to present, right? Be careful about including the month and the year. So many students have a tendency to want to put the semesters in which they did things, but remember, in the world of work, people don't operate on semesters. They operate on month and year. So you want to convert the semester dates into month and year dates, and you don't have to put the actual start day associated with the dates. Now, the next line down you'll see is the heading of the position or your position title. If you didn't have a formal title in your internship, for instance, you can use a descriptive title. So if you were, in this case, a teaching intern, you could put that. Even if that wasn't your formal title, because it is accurately descriptive of the work that you did. In most cases, unless you're applying for a federal job, you do not have to put salary, and you do not have to put the number of hours per week in which you were employed in a position. If it were a practicum or internship for a counseling or social work degree, then hours could be significant in that those are counting towards some certifications and licensures. Good. Bullet points need to be descriptive, and as I mentioned earlier, they need to include numbers and outcomes. So descriptive of the actual tasks that you did, how often you did these things, and what the success of your work was will be very important to the bullet points. Next, we want to talk just briefly about volunteer and community work. So these are things outside of your standard curricular experience. It could be clubs and organizations that you were involved in. It could be volunteer work that you did in the community. It could be part-time jobs or part-time summer employment that you had, coaching or assisting others in different ways. So think about, all of the things that you have done comprehensively. In today's marketplace, employers are looking for well-rounded individuals who are interested in a variety of things outside the boundaries of just work. And so some of these things can include great leadership roles. If you're currently in school and you're playing sports or you're involved in a club, definitely think about taking it to the next level and maybe getting a leadership position within your club or organization so that you can feature that and have that experience to talk about in an interview or featured on your resume. So those are the basics of the resume. Let's get to references now. References are usually 3 individuals that you think would be able to speak to your qualifications as well as your experiences. For those people in college or recent graduates, that's most typically going to be your professors. You need to have the name of the person, their professional title, where they are employed, the street, address, city, state, zip code, email address, how you know this individual, and how long they have known you. So this gives the employer some clue the degree to which people will be able to speak about your experience and the depth of their knowledge of your work. So very important to have at least 3 people. You can have a 4th person, but you definitely want to be in touch with these people before you include them on your reference sheet to ask their permission to include them. You wouldn't want them to be surprised by a call from an employer, and you definitely want to share with them what your plans are so that they can begin thinking about all of the good things that they would want to share with a potential employer as they offer you this reference. Now let's just touch briefly upon cover letters. Cover letters are not difficult to write, contrary to popular opinion. They're pretty formulaic. So they always start with a very formal presentation of the letter itself. Since you don't have letterhead stationery, you're going to include your name and contact information at the very top, followed by the date, then the name, title of the person you're writing to. It's okay to leave that off if you don't have an individual that you're writing to, if you're just writing to a blind post. The name of the company, street address, city, state, and zip, all pretty standard. If you have the name of the person, it's going to be Dear Mr. or Ms. So-and-so, whoever that person might be. If you don't have the name of that person, you can absolutely use to whom it may concern, or Dear Hiring Manager, or Dear Human Resource contact, information there. So that can vary depending on whether or not you know the individual that you're writing to. The first paragraph should always very explicitly talk about what you're writing to apply for and the general qualifications you bring, along with a statement of where you are in your career advancement. So the purpose of this letter is to apply for this position that's been advertised on your company's website. I'm currently a new graduate from Hood College with a degree in whatever area you studied, and then a general listing of your qualifications. Now, those listings of qualifications should be things that you've pulled from the job description that seem like they're the most important things for you, and you need to get all of those things into that first short paragraph because you want to keep the reader going down into the body of your document. So the last sentence of this first paragraph should be some statement about why you believe this makes you a qualified candidate and should set up the next paragraph. So paragraph 2 is now a more expanded view of the experiences to which you have alluded in paragraph 1. So you're going to be talking about the details of the experiences that you think are most relevant. Some people want to copy the bullet points out of their resume and put them into the second graph, and that is not a good idea. The cover letter is not simply a reiteration of those things that you have in your resume. It should expand upon those things with more specifics and details in paragraph number 2. Paragraph number 3 is actually an optional paragraph. It can be a continuation of more specific training, academic training maybe, certificate, professional development experiences that you've had, but it can be something that's very unique to you. For instance, you studied abroad and you have knowledge of a culture that the company is going to be working closely with, or might be a requirement of your day-to-day interaction, or you might have travel associated with your work. And so that experience shows that you're an experienced traveler, you know how to operate in different cultures. Maybe paragraph 3 is about that. It's a flexible paragraph, and it can be something that's really unique to you, or it can be a continuation of your detailed description of your academics or work experiences. And this gets us down to the last paragraph, which is the wrap up. It usually expresses that you would very much like to come for an interview, that you can do that conveniently for the employer. You repeat your contact information, and then you end by thanking them for reviewing your information. Let's face it, not all of these documents get reviewed by a human being, so it is a special opportunity that somebody's taken the time to read your resume and to read this cover letter carefully. Good. If you feel as though you can reach out to the person that's the hiring manager or is the contact person given within a job posting, you may want to conclude this letter with that you will be in touch with them. However, if you say that you're going to be in touch with them, you do need to follow up on that. So nothing could be worse than saying you'll follow up and not doing it. Then the person who's reviewing the document is going to assume that you don't follow through on your promises. So you wouldn't want that, definitely. Awesome. So that's our cover letters. You want to register for Handshake, which is the college's platform for internship and job searching. It's an easy to sign up for service. It's available through the Career Center website. There are several places that you can access it. If you click on the Resources tab, you'll see it's the very first thing that, or second thing that's listed there. Once you sign into Handshake, you'll use your regular college email and password as your access password, username and password. You'll want to build a profile inside Handshake. Handshake is a tool very similar to other platforms in that it has an algorithm built into it. And once you've built that profile, it'll start pulling and presenting to you internships and jobs that match your qualifications. So building your profile is very important. If you make your profile public in Handshake, that means employers that are seeking candidates that have your qualifications will be able to see your resume too. An additional resource that we have in the Career Center is called Career Shift. Once again, you'll find the link to this particular system embedded within this PowerPoint, but also under that resource tab on the Career Center website. Career Shift is a job aggregator. It's a powerful search engine, and it will search sites that have positions that are not found on any job boards, that are only found on websites, nonprofits, or governmental agencies. So Career Shift is another important resource that we have to help you navigate the job and internship search process, and will help you dig a little bit deeper in finding those resources. Now here's a look at that resource page that's on the Career Center website under Resources. And it's also where you're going to find the link to the tutorial that I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation that offers you a more detailed summation of all of the components of the resume. So you can print that off, or you can look at it electronically, go back and use it over and over again. That concludes our presentation, our brief tutorial on resumes, cover letters, references, and some of the resources that we offer in the Career Center. If you feel you need help writing any of these documents, please know that counselors are on hand to help you with this. And even if you only have a skeleton of a resume, we can help you fully develop, proofread, and get a great document together that's going to represent you in the best way possible. So for resumes or cover letters, we're happy to work either from scratch or from a document that you've already created, or to help you update what you already have. It's easy to get an appointment. You can do this through Handshake. You'll see available appointments for counselors in the Career Center, and those can be had virtually, so we can meet with you over video chat or telephone. Or you can send an email to careers@hood.edu, and a counselor will be in touch with you to set up an appointment. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you'll reach out to the Career Center. We're here to help you.